The vast expanse of space beyond Neptune was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of human technology probing the void. Major Alex Stanton leaned over the console at Luna Defense Station, his sharp gaze fixed on a holographic display. His crew, handpicked for their skills and nerve, stood tensely behind him, waiting for the incoming data stream to finish processing. Something had triggered the early warning system on the edge of the solar system. Lieutenant Chong Analysis, Stanton ordered, his tone calm but firm. Ryan Chong, a wiry man with quick hands and quicker thoughts, scanned the data feed. His dark eyes darted across the screen. "It's not natural, sir. Metallic composition. Faint propulsion signature. It's a ship." He hesitated, then added, "Not one of ours. Captain Mark Torres, built like a linebacker and just as blunt, crossed his arms. Great. First aliens show up and they're trespassing." Stanton straightened. "Get me visuals." The room dimmed as the holographic projector displayed a grainy image. The object was sleek, scarred, and utterly alien. Its angular design spoke of purpose, and its battered hull told of desperation. Dr. Andrew Blake snorted from the corner. "Looks like they've had a rough trip. Maybe they're just lost. Or they're scouting," Torres countered. "And where there's scouts, there's usually an army." Stanton raised a hand to silence the debate. "Chong, signal them. Let's see if they're friendly." The seconds stretched into eternity as the station broadcasted a universal greeting. Finally, the alien ship responded, not with words but with an urgent data burst. Chang's fingers flew across the keyboard, decoding it as fast as he could. "They're refugees," he said, his voice tight. "They're fleeing something called the Varac Imperium. They're requesting asylum." Blake let out a low whistle. "Refugees from what? A space empire?" This just keeps getting better. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared. Chang's face went pale. "We've got another contact, much larger. And fast." On screen, Stanton barked. The display shifted, revealing a massive, angular vessel bearing down on the alien refugee ship. Its hull gleamed with an almost predatory menace, and its size dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. "Guessing that's the Varac," Torres muttered. The room erupted into a flurry of activity as Stanton took command. "Raise shields. Prep the railguns. Chong, warn the refugee ship to get behind us." "Sir, our defenses won't scratch that thing," Blake said. "We're outclassed." "Noted." Stanton replied curtly. "Doesn't change the plan." The refugee ship struggled to maneuver, its engine sputtering. Meanwhile, the Varac vessel powered up its weapons, a sickly green glow forming at its bow. "Torres, what do we have in the arsenal?" Stanton asked. "Nukes," Torres said grimly. "But we'd have to get close, and even then—" "Figure it out," Stanton snapped. As the Varac opened fire, beams of green energy sliced through the void, narrowly missing the Luna station. The station's automated railguns returned fire, sending a hail of tungsten slugs at the enemy. Most were absorbed by the Varnac's shields, but a few struck the hull, leaving minor scars. "Chong, patch me through to the fleet," Stanton said. "I want every available ship moving to intercept." Chong nodded, his hands flying over the console. Stanton turned to Torres. "You and Walker, take the prototype fighter. Load it with everything you can." Torres didn't hesitate. "On it, sir." The prototype fighter, a sleek, untested craft designed for maneuverability, had never seen combat. Chief Logan Walker, a grizzled mechanic who had spent more time in space than on Earth, met Torres in the hangar. Together, they worked in silence, loading the craft with nuclear payloads rigged for maximum impact. "Think this'll work?" Walker asked. Torres grinned. "Nope, but it'll make one hell of a story if it doesn't." As the fighter launched, Stanton watched from the control room. "Blake, give me options," he said. "Options? You mean besides hoping those two don't get vaporized?" Blake replied, earning a sharp glare from Stanton. Fine. If we can disrupt their shields, the nukes might actually penetrate. But we need to overload their systems first. Suggestions? Stanton asked. Blake sighed. Their energy signature's erratic. If we time it right, a concentrated railgun volley might do it. But it's a long shot. Do it, Stanton said. Chong, coordinate the firing sequence. Outside, Torres and Walker approached the Varac ship, their fighter weaving through enemy fire. Torres kept the craft steady while Walker armed the nukes. We're in range, Walker said. Let's hope the boss knows what he's doing. The railguns on Luna Station fired in perfect synchronization, their slugs hitting the same spot on the Varac shields. For a brief moment, the shield flickered. Now, Stanton shouted. Torres didn't hesitate. He launched the nukes, veering away at the last possible second. The explosions rocked the Varac ship, tearing through its weakened defenses. A chain reaction followed, lighting up the darkness with a fiery cascade. Target neutralized, Chong said, disbelief in his voice. Cheers erupted in the control room, but Stanton remained stoic. Damage report. The refugee ship's intact, Blake said. But we're picking up more signatures. Bigger ones. Stanton nodded grimly. This was just a vanguard. The room fell silent. The enormity of the situation sank in. Humanity was no longer alone. But their first encounter with the wider galaxy had made one thing clear. They were at war. Stanton turned to his team. We've got work to do. The weeks following the first battle were a blur of frenetic energy. Humanity had earned a reprieve, but Major Alex Stanton knew the Varac wouldn't underestimate them again. On the edge of the solar system, alien ships loomed like harbingers of destruction, their presence a constant reminder that time was slipping away. Earth's scattered fleet, woefully unprepared for interstellar war, scrambled to find a way to meet the impending storm. In the hangar of Luna Defense Station, Chief Logan Walker cursed under his breath as he inspected a salvaged piece of Korean technology. The alien shielding module was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Complex lattices of crystalline circuits humming faintly with residual energy. Captain Mark Torres leaned against the workbench, watching him. Any luck? Torres asked, his voice tinged with impatience. Walker shot him a glare. Luck's for gamblers. This is engineering, and it's damn near impossible with what we've got. Torres smirked. So, that's a no. Give me time, Walker snapped. This thing wasn't built by humans. Half of it doesn't even make sense. You've got 2 days. Stanton's voice cut through the noise as he entered the hangar. His uniform was crisp, but the dark circles under his eyes betrayed the strain of endless strategy sessions. If we can't integrate that shield tech into our ships by then, it's not going to matter how clever we are. Walker grumbled but nodded, already turning back to the module. Stanton's gaze shifted to Torres. What about you? I rigged a prototype missile with a hybrid warhead, Torres said. Nuclear payload with a Korean plasma core. Should pack a punch if it doesn't blow us up first. Test it. We'll need every advantage. In the control room, Lieutenant Ryan Chong worked tirelessly at his console. He had repurposed the station's outdated AI, layering it with snippets of alien coding provided by the Korean. The AI now hummed with a semblance of alien logic, allowing it to manage complex computations at a speed humanity had never achieved. Chong! Stanton called as he entered. Progress? Chong turned, his expression a mix of pride and exhaustion. We've managed to integrate the alien systems into our targeting array. It's not perfect, but it should give us an edge. Define edge. Milliseconds of faster response time. Enough to matter. Stanton nodded. Good work. But keep pushing. The Varac won't care about milliseconds if they bring that fleet through. Across the station, Dr. Andrew Blake had set up a makeshift laboratory, cluttered with alien components and hastily scrawled equations. He was poring over star charts when Stanton found him. You've been quiet, Stanton said. Blake didn't look up. Busy figuring out how we don't all die. And Blake finally turned, his expression grim. The Kreen weren't entirely forthcoming. They've been fighting the Varac for centuries and still lost. What makes you think we'll do any better? Because we don't have a choice? Blake sighed. I'm working on something. A way to weaponize Earth's magnetic field. It's theoretical and insanely risky. Keep at it. We'll need every crazy idea you've got. That night, the station buzzed with activity as Stanton's team pushed themselves to the limit. Torres and Walker ran simulations of the new missile system, each failure refining their design. Chong fine-tuned the AI, eking out every last drop of performance. Blake's lab became a hub of controlled chaos, equations transforming into prototypes. The tension came to a head during a strategy meeting. Stanton stood before his team, a holographic map of the solar system projected behind him. We have one shot to hold them at Mars, he began. Their main fleet is too large to face head-on, but we can force them into a bottleneck near Olympus Mons. Torres, Walker, your missiles will be critical. Chong, the AI will coordinate the defense grid. Blake, your magnetic field weapon. Unfinished, Blake interrupted. Stanton's tone hardened. Finish it, or we lose. The room fell silent. Finally, Blake nodded, his reluctance clear. When the Varac returned, they came in force. Their ships filled the void, blotting out the stars. Earth's fleet, a patchwork of human ingenuity and Kreen technology, looked pitiful by comparison. But Stanton stood resolute on the command deck, his team around him. Remember the plan, he said. We hold them here, no matter what. The battle began with a fury. Varac beams raked across the human ships, their shields barely holding. Chang's AI-directed targeting system responded with precision, guiding railgun fire to exploit gaps in the enemy's formation. Torres and Walker launched their hybrid missiles, each detonation rocking the alien ships. Blake's weapon came online just as the Varnac's flagship advanced. Magnetic pulses rippled across the Martian surface, disrupting the enemy's systems. The flagship faltered, its shields flickering. Now, Stanton ordered. The combined firepower of Earth's fleet focused on the flagship, a blinding explosion ripping through its core. Cheers erupted across the comms, but Stanton's face remained grim. The Varac retreated, but only for now. In the aftermath, Stanton addressed his team in the dim light of the command room. We bought ourselves time. Nothing more. They'll be back, stronger than ever. Torres smirked, his confidence undimmed. Let them. We'll be ready. Stanton nodded, but his gaze lingered on the stars beyond the station. Humanity had proven it could adapt, but survival would demand even more, and the next battle would test them like never before. The Varnac's second arrival was a tempest in the void, an armada so vast it obscured the light of distant stars. The hulking ships bristled with weapons, their every movement precise and menacing. On Luna Defense Station, Major Alex Stanton stood before the observation window, his reflection a grim silhouette against the chaos unfolding in space. "ETA on the main fleet?" he asked, his voice sharp and unwavering. Lieutenant Ryan Chang's reply came swiftly. 30 minutes until they're in effective range. Their formation suggests a multi-pronged assault. They're learning, Stanton muttered. They won't make the same mistakes. They won't have to, Dr. Andrew Blake added, leaning against a console. Their firepower alone could wipe us out before we make a dent. Not if we stick to the plan, Stanton said, turning to his team. Torres, Walker, status? In the hangar, Captain Mark Torres and Chief Logan Walker were strapping the final payloads into humanity's first stealth-enabled strike craft. The sleek black ship pulsed with faint blue light from its Kreen-derived propulsion system. Walker gave the hull an affectionate slap. "She's ready," Walker said through the comms. Fast, quiet, and carrying enough firepower to make them regret showing up. "Good," Stanton said. "Chong, keep our defense grid synced. Every second counts. Blake, is the magnetron online?" Blake exhaled heavily. It's as online as it's going to get. Manipulating Earth's magnetic field at this scale is unprecedented. If it works, it'll scramble their systems for a few minutes. If it doesn't, we'll fry half the station. Make it work, Stanton said, his tone leaving no room for argument. As the Varac fleet closed in, Stanton addressed the crew. His voice echoed through the station, steady and commanding. We've fought this enemy before. We've seen their strength, their ruthlessness. But they've underestimated us every step of the way. They see us as primitive, weak. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show them what humanity is capable of. The station erupted in a chorus of affirmations, and Stanton turned back to the tactical display. The Varac were deploying in a crescent formation, their leading ships already firing long-range plasma beams. The first shots raked across Earth's orbital defenses, igniting flashes of light as shields absorbed the impact. "Torres, Walker, launch," Stanton ordered. The stealth craft slid silently into the void, its dark hull blending seamlessly with the shadows. Inside, Torres piloted with precision, his hands steady on the controls. Walker monitored the payload, his gruff voice tinged with excitement. 2 minutes to target. Back on the station, Chang's fingers flew over his console as he directed the defense grid. Automated railguns unleashed volleys of tungsten slugs, hammering the Varnac's forward ships. Several smaller vessels disintegrated under the barrage, but the larger ones pressed on, shields flaring. "They're adapting faster this time," Chong said. "We'll be overrun in 10 minutes. Blake, engage the magnetron," Stanton ordered. Blake hesitated only a moment before activating the device. Deep beneath Earth's surface, vast energy nodes came to life, channeling the planet's magnetic field into a focused pulse. In space, the Varac ships faltered, their shields flickering and weapons sputtering. "Direct hit," Blake reported, a note of triumph in his voice. "They're vulnerable. Fire everything," Stanton commanded. The station's remaining weapons lit up the void, tearing into the Varnac's crippled formation. Explosions rippled through the fleet, scattering debris like shrapnel. Amid the chaos, Torres and Walker reached their target, the Varac flagship. "Payload armed," Walker said. "Let's make some noise." Torres maneuvered the craft into position, weaving through a gauntlet of debris and sporadic enemy fire. He brought the ship in close, releasing the payload just as the Varac systems began to recover. The hybrid warhead detonated, its twin cores unleashing a devastating surge of energy. The flagship fractured in a brilliant explosion, its pieces tumbling into the void. "Direct hit," Torres shouted, but the celebration was short-lived. On the station, Chang's screen lit up with new contacts. "Incoming reinforcements," he said. "At least twice as many as the first wave." Stanton's jaw tightened. "Get Torres and Walker back." "Blake, can the magnetron handle another pulse?" Blake shook his head. "Not without blowing us all to hell." "We don't have another choice," Stanton said. "Prep it." As Blake scrambled to reset the device, Stanton turned to Chong. "Coordinate with the Kareen. If they're going to help, now's the time." The Kareen, who had watched humanity's efforts with skepticism, finally deployed their own ships. Though battered and few in number, their vessels carried advanced weaponry that cut through the Varac ranks with surgical precision. Together, the human and Kareen forces fought side by side, turning the tide of the battle. Blake's voice crackled over the comms. "Magnetron ready, but this is a one-way trip." "Do it," Stanton ordered. The second pulse erupted from Earth, more powerful than the first. The Varac fleet convulsed as their systems overloaded, leaving them vulnerable to the combined assault. One by one, the enemy ships fell, their remnants drifting lifelessly in the void. As the final Varac vessel exploded, a hush fell over the station. Stanton stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the battlefield. The cost had been steep, but they had won. In the aftermath, Stanton gathered his team in the control room. Torres and Walker, exhausted but triumphant, leaned against the consoles. Chong sat cross-legged, his fingers twitching from overwork. Blake slumped in a chair, his face pale but resolute. "We did it," Stanton said, his voice heavy with both relief and exhaustion. "But this isn't the end. The Varac will come back, and next time, they'll be ready for us." Walker grinned. "So, we'll just get better." Stanton nodded. "We've shown them what humanity is capable of. Now we have to show them what happens when we refuse to back down." The room fell silent as his words sank in. Outside, the debris of battle floated silently in the void, a testament to humanity's resilience. For the first time, the galaxy would remember Earth, not as a primitive backwater, but as a force to be reckoned with.